Most aircraft owners make the same three expensive mistakes. They outsource their thinking, they rely on outdated information and practices, and they treat the aircraft like a hobby instead of an asset. Not because they are lazy, not because they are incapable. In fact, many aircraft owners are highly successful business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives. They exercise a high degree of control over their professional and private lives. But for some reason, when they enter general aviation, many of them abandon the same decision-making principles that made them successful in the first place. They simply follow the default path of aircraft ownership. And that creates unnecessary cost, unnecessary risk, and a lot of frustration. I know because I did exactly the same thing. When I started as head of flight operations, it seemed like the logical thing to do. After all, there were instructors, maintenance organizations, manufacturers and other professionals involved. Surely they knew what was best, but something about it never felt right. And over time I realized that many aircraft owners were making exactly the same mistake. The problem is not that the people in aviation are dishonest or incompetent. The problem is that the aviation ecosystem has limitations. And if you don't understand those limitations, aircraft ownership can become far more difficult than it needs to be. Let me explain. Aircraft ownership is not like buying a car. It's much closer to building a house. When you build a house, you don't simply hand everything over to contractors and hope for the best. Either you or someone you hire oversees the project. Aircraft ownership works much the same. You have flight schools, instructors, aircraft manufacturers, dealers, brokers, maintenance providers, CAMOs and many other stakeholders. Together they form what I call the aviation ecosystem. The challenge is that every stakeholder has their own incentives. Flight schools are optimized to get your license safely and efficiently. They are not designed to teach you how to manage an aircraft as an asset. You understand the different roles involved, you understand the incentives, and you make the important decisions. Flight instructors may be relatively inexperienced or highly experienced in a completely different type of operation. An airline captain with 14,000 hours may not necessarily be the best person to teach a pilot owner how to optimize the operation of a piston-powered aircraft. Aircraft manufacturers, dealers and brokers want to sell aircraft. Ideally, aircraft that generates the highest margin or happen to be available in inventory. Maintenance organizations want to maintain and repair aircraft while managing liability and compliance. CAMOs and CAOs are focused on maintaining compliance and managing regulatory risk. None of this is wrong. It's simply their role. The problem starts when owners assume that someone else is responsible for optimizing their aircraft ownership. Nobody is, and that's where the mistakes begin. Most ownership problems can be traced back to three critical mistakes. The first mistake is outsourcing maintenance and operational thinking. Owners ask aircraft sellers which aircraft they should buy before clearly defining their mission. They blindly trust instructors without questioning whether the techniques being taught are still relevant. They leave airworthiness and maintenance management entirely to maintenance providers and CAMOs without considering incentives or limitations. Many owners want the freedom and flexibility that aircraft ownership provides, but they don't want the responsibility that comes with it. As a result, they surrender control over important decisions. The second mistake is operating based on outdated information and practices. Many owners are unknowingly flying and maintaining the aircraft using assumptions that are decades old. A large amount of maintenance providers still struggle to embrace reliability-centered maintenance and evidence-based decision-making. Engine condition monitoring, bore scope inspections, engine data analysis, oil analysis, and structured maintenance processes are often underutilized or misunderstood. The same thing happens in flight operations. Pilots are taught oversimplified rules such as don't lean below 5,000 feet, never operate over square, add a little fuel just to be safe. Most instructors are not intentionally spreading misinformation. They are often teaching what they were taught. The problem is that owners rarely stop to question whether the information is still valid. The third mistake is treating an aircraft like a hobby while expecting professional outcome. Many owners continue operating with outdated instrumentation. They don't collect engine data, they don't review trends, they rely on intuition, habit and tradition instead of systems and evidence. Professional operators do the opposite. They monitor trends, they use data, they identify problems early, and they continuously improve their operation over time. So how do you avoid these mistakes? I believe most ownership challenges can be eliminated by following 3 simple principles. The first is taking ownership of maintenance and operational decisions. You don't need to perform your own maintenance and you don't need to become an engineer. But you need to understand the basic principles behind your aircraft and engine. You need enough knowledge to evaluate recommendations, filter information, and make informed decisions. The goal is not to replace experts, the goal is to become an informed owner. The second principle is replacing opinions and assumptions with evidence. Install a modern engine monitor if you don't already have one. Establish a proper engine condition monitoring program. Use engine data, oil analysis, bore scope inspections, and other available information to support your decisions. Evidence should drive decisions, not opinions, not assumptions, and certainly not hangar folklore. The third principle is operating and managing your aircraft like a professional asset. Use the data available to you. Apply proven operating techniques, establish personal limits and operating procedures, and continue learning. Professional operators do not rely on luck. Neither should you. At this point, some people usually say, I don't want to become a mechanic. And I agree, you shouldn't. The goal is not becoming a mechanic, the goal is becoming an informed owner. You need enough knowledge to understand the fundamentals and participate meaningfully in the decision-making process. Many people assume transition training will provide all these answers. In reality, most instructors are not specialized in aircraft ownership, maintenance strategy, or long-term operation. Likewise, maintenance providers are experts in maintenance. That does not automatically make them experts in ownership, operation, cost optimization, or long-term asset management. The same way, a business owner doesn't need to become an accountant. They still need enough knowledge to ask the right questions and challenge recommendations. Aircraft ownership is no different. Ultimately, aircraft ownership can be one of the most rewarding activities in life. It can provide freedom, it can create meaningful experiences with family and friends, it can make business travel dramatically more efficient. Or it can become a source of frustration, uncertainty, unnecessary cost and stress. The difference often comes down to how the owner approaches responsibility of ownership. And that's why I believe the goal is not independence from experts, the goal is independence from blind trust. Choose your side. If you're planning to buy an aircraft or you have recently become a pilot owner, the fastest way to avoid years of costly mistakes is to learn the systems, principles, and decision-making frameworks that professional operators use. Join our Aviation workshop and learn the system, frameworks, and operating principles that move pilot owners from passive aircraft ownership to competent operators. Remember, the goal is to become an informed aircraft owner. See you in the next one.